Good day, everyone, and welcome to my minimalist Acheron Mammoth Slayer guide in the wilderness. This can also be considered an Ironman guide since the account that I'm showing you this on is an Ironman. So I'm only using gear that is reasonably obtainable for a high-level Ironman. I'm going to walk you through the minimal gear that I think you should be using to make this a comfortable Slayer task, and also some other tips and tricks on how to avoid their mechanics that can be tricky for players that aren't used to them, and how to maximize your experience and get the most benefit from this task. I'd say it's a wilderness guide for this task in particular. There's not that much of a difference, I don't think, for mammoths in the wilderness versus non-wilderness. They're not aggressive either way. There's a handful of them available in the area either way, so you can do this outside the wilderness too. There's just the advantage of the wilderness drop table, and if you're getting the Slayer task from Mandrith, you have to do them here, so that's why it's a wilderness guide. First of all, very briefly, the best way to find them in the wilderness is by going northwest from the agility course and running past all the Glackors, so they are actually very close to Mandrith. Once here, when you start killing mammoths, make sure that you're not too close to the Glackors because their attack range is actually pretty high, and they're very irritating when they start attacking you while you're already dealing with a mammoth. Okay, so let's get into the gear. You must kill mammoths with melee. Well, you don't have to, but you'll die very quickly otherwise. The mammoths have a kind of hilarious honor system where if you're not using melee against them, they will use very, very heavy range attacks or some kind of mechanics that will kill you very quickly. I haven't tried it myself because I don't want to die very quickly. So use melee, especially stab weapons. They're weakest too, accuracy-wise, so if your combat stats are lower, try to have a stab weapons. I recommend tier 85 melee weapons to make this go relatively smoothly. You can do smoothly. You can do this with lower. I actually have technically lower tier than that here. I have a tier 85 Tetsu Katana and a tier 79 Bane offhand longsword, just because I don't have the other Tetsu Katana yet. And it works well enough. I miss every now and then, but it's fine. And I'm still getting about 45-second kills with this tier of weapons. Armor-wise, somewhere in the ballpark of tier 80 melee armor would be good. I think you can do it with lower, but you can actually block a lot of their melee attacks with good defense, and their auto attacks hit pretty hard, up to around 2,000 or maybe a little bit over. So the better your armor, the better time you'll have to block at least some of those hits. Otherwise, I'm not using anything special here. This is a Ironman that is just getting into high level, so I don't have Cinderbanes or Essence of Finality or Amulet of Souls or anything like that. I'm just coasting by with the minimal gear that I have here, and it works well enough. The next requirement to discuss is prayer. I would say that tier 95 prayer is very strongly recommended. Tier 92 prayer is a minimum requirement for soul split. Although they do hit pretty heavy and deflect prayers might make more sense, it does not make sense to use deflect prayers at mammoths because they can use melee like adrenaline abilities, including a few abilities that disable your protection prayers. So they can't disable soul split, but if you're using deflect melee, they can disable that regularly, and that can be annoying, and it'll just be counterproductive. Level 95 prayer is best to make use of the level 95 combat curse. Here I am flicking it on and off because I am actually using a penance aura for this task, so I don't have to worry about stocking prayer potions. And I find that I am actually not able to sustain soul split plus turmoil throughout the entire task, so I'm kind of just flicking turmoil on and off. Not ideal, but you can get away with it. The last gear suggestion is one of two suggestions, so I highly recommend using a Scrimshaw, and that would be either a Scrimshaw of Vamprysim to help you heal a little more if you're taking a lot of damage. If you're an Iron account, that means having 92 fletching and all of the 4 scrolls unlocked from player ports. Otherwise, if your account is not an Iron account, you can just buy the Scrimshaw from other players, and it's well worth it. The other Scrimshaw I would recommend, actually much stronger than that, is the Scrimshaw of Sacrifice. This one is harder to obtain for Iron accounts. I somehow have one here, and I have never used it before this task. Actually, I've never done this task before, by the way. What you're watching is my first go at it, so... yeah, anyways. The Scrimshaw of Sacrifice is obtained from either the Motherlode Maw or exchanging Motherlode Maw shards, which is how I got it on this iron, or from the Giant Mimic, or buying the tradable version from other players on non-iron accounts. What this Scrimshaw does is it basically sacrifices all the drops except for tertiary drops from a monster, so you'll still get summoning charms and some things like that, but the bone drops and main drops you will not get from the monster. In exchange, you'll get greatly increased combat experience and Slayer experience, like greatly. So Mammoths already give 4.2 thousand Slayer experience per kill, I believe, which is a lot. Increasing that further with a Scrimshaw of Sacrifice makes this a great way to gain a lot of Slayer experience very quickly. So Mammoths don't have particularly valuable or unique drops compared to other monsters of the same tier. So I think they're probably the only Slayer creature in my book worth using the Scrimshaw on. So that's the rundown on those. Both of those Scrimshaws are optional, just very helpful. Of course, we have to talk about the Mammoth's combat mechanics because they are actually quite tricky. And like I mentioned, this is my first Slayer task ever at Mammoth, so you'll see I had a little bit of trouble with them, but I want to explain them as clearly as I can here because I read up on the mechanics, I watched other people's videos on the mechanics, and still struggled when I got to the Mammoths here. So you'll probably struggle a bit till you get used to it, but I want to at least explain some things in a way that might help you more going into it for your first time. So if you stay far away from the Mammoths for too long, just don't, because they'll have a Dishonour mechanic and they'll just do some form of attack that hits you for a ton of damage. I have not experienced this myself because I stay close to the Mammoths to avoid it, but just stay close to them and melee them. That's all you need to know, for starters. Their second most frequently used mechanic is a ranged attack that is pretty strong, and basically they pick up a chunk of ice and throw it at your location. The way you dodge this is by moving from the location that you were. It looks like you need to move at least 2 spaces away or else it'll still hit you. This one is a little bit tricky because it can be used very frequently, and the Mammoths can use it back to back unexpectedly. And the easiest way to tell when they're using this mechanic is when their attack animation changes. So they'll stop attacking you for a few seconds, they'll duck their head down, and you should see like a chunk of ice being picked up by their trunk, and then they'll throw it in the air. You have a good amount of time to dodge this actually, because you just need to move from the time the attack begins, you just need to move from the location you were standing at. So if you move right away, you'll dodge it because the ice will land on the location that you were standing at when the attack first started. When this becomes tricky to dodge is when the attack animations don't go through all the way, or when attack animations overlap each other and you can't see the Mammoth doing this move sometimes. But just pay attention to when the Mammoth stops attacking you for a few seconds, and then just move if that happens. That's the safest way to dodge this. The other less commonly used mechanic that they have that's much more dangerous is this charging attack. It's very subtle, and it happens so rarely that it's easy, at least for me, to forget to watch out for it, but the way that you know it's coming is that they'll get a blue bar that fills up above their head next to their health and their adrenaline, and the blue bar fills up in about 5 seconds, and when that happens they will charge at you. The charge can hit for up to 8,000, I believe. Just as a reference, I didn't catch it in this recording because it happened right after, but I was hit with a charge that hit me for about 7,000 and KO'd me. Actually like 2 kills after I stopped all my recordings, so it is a very dangerous mechanic, and you just need to dodge it. It's actually a little bit tricky for a first timer, so I didn't do a very good job of it in any of the recordings here, but basically the way you dodge this is that before the bar fills up all the way, you need to move out of the way of the mammoth. So whatever direction the mammoth is facing, just move away. The charge attack can happen up to 3 times. Sometimes it's just once, sometimes it's twice, but it can be up to 3 times, so you need to be vigilant of that. I've been hit by this mechanic quite a bit in my tasks, mammoth tasks from this point on. It typically hits for like 1,000 or 2,000 or I don't know. It typically hits pretty low. I'm not sure why, if I've just been lucky, but it can kill you, so it is best to get out of the way and dodge it as soon as you can. I've noticed that it also helps to put some distance between yourself and the mammoth first. I've had really no luck dodging this while standing next to the mammoth, so yeah. You can try surging too, as long as you time it very well to get behind the mammoth. So that's all. That's all the mammoth's mechanics. They are a bit tricky because you need to be moving around constantly. Definitely make sure you have no area of effect or like AoE damaging abilities here. You will not want to attract 2 mammoths at once. That's it. They are a slower task, but they do give you a lot of experience, especially with a Scrimshaw sacrifice. I would love to make an AFK or semi-AFK guide for this, but it's just not possible. I don't even know if with higher tier gear it's possible or not. Maybe, if you can kill them very quickly. But for now, I think the only way to survive this task sustainably is to pay attention, dodge the mechanics, especially the charge. But I think, like I mentioned, the charge happens much more rarely than the ice block, so just don't forget to watch out for the charge and watch out for the blue bar above their head every now and then. That's all I have to say. That's mammoths. If you like this kind of content and you found this guide helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. And thank you for making it all the way through. I'll catch you in the next one.